Hey guys, what's up? I'm still finishing my lunch. They have not started back yet. But Court TV did a poll. Should the Commonwealth call Trooper Proctor to the stand? 81% said yes, absolutely. 13% said no, too risky. And 7% said maybe. So, what do you guys think? I voted yes, absolutely. That's just because I want him to testify. I think it would be too risky for the Commonwealth. I want the defense to call him and treat him as a hostile witness and just tear him up. That's what I want. The dog's not eating barbecue chicken. I don't know if we'll get to cross today. I hope we get to cross today. I am still, what's the word I want? Perplexed as to why Bev is sustaining all these objections about how much Karen Reed drank that night. Because, I mean, that's the crux of their case, is that she was drunk and backed into him, right? So why is she letting them strike how many drinks she had? I mean, she's literally striking it. Because they're saying objection and she's saying sustained, and then they're moved to strike and she's saying that last part of the answer is stricken. I'm like, what? Why is she being so nice? It's like freaking me out. Like, what is happening? Are we in another dimension or what? Parallel universe? What is going on? There was a whole lot more of the text than what was read. You are absolutely right, Judy. And I think the jury deserves to hear it. They need to know exactly how screwed up this investigation was. I believe that in order for Karen Reed to get any type of a fair trial, they need to know that there was bias involved in the investigation. Now, why Trooper Proctor was as biased as he was, I don't know. Because Colin, okay, if Colin is involved, if there was some sort of drug dealing thing going on, and John was investigating it, and that was what all of this was about, then that would be the only reason why Proctor, because Colin was in his sister's wedding, because Colin's mom is friends with her, right? Is that the relationship? Because Colin was in his sister's wedding. So his sister's friends with the Alberts, right? And Julie wanted to get the Proctors a gift for his work on this case. That needs to come out. So the bias that Proctor has involves Chris Albert's family, not Brian Albert's. Right. Isn't that what I said? So there is a relationship there, even though he stated originally that there was no relationship between him and the Alberts, and then it was brought out on cross that there was, even if it's just Colin was in his sister's wedding, but the Alberts and he were at the head table at the wedding, right? So he did know them. I mean, I have friends that I know they're friends. You know what I mean? Like, one of my very best friends in the world, her daughter is my goddaughter. We went to high school together. She has friends that I know, but we're not super, super close. But I would not ever say, oh, I don't know her, because I know her. Like, I went to high school with her. When we do gatherings together, she's there, birthday parties and that kind of thing. Like, I know her. So it's not a tight relationship, but there's still a relationship there. I know her because of my friend. And that's kind of like how Trooper Proctor knew the Alberts through his sister. So yeah, he knew them, but he denied that there was any type of relationship at all with them. I remember during the last trial, I kept saying, but I thought it was his wedding. During the last trial, I kept saying, but he was a ring bearer at your wedding. But it wasn't his wedding, it was his sister's wedding. But I think the jury needs to know that. Because otherwise, it just seems like, why was he so dead set against her from the beginning? And I definitely think it needs to come out that Julie Albert wanted to give them a gift. Because that's a huge no-no. Like, cops are not supposed to take gifts. I mean, my dad was a cop, so... I mean, well... And also, he said something about her weird accent. What I want to know... How did he find out about her medical condition and everything? Because, like, how did that even come up? I wonder if Jim McCabe had to have told him that. Like, how else do you know that about somebody? I mean, he actually said in a text, she leaks poo. There is not a video of her interview, and she probably won't testify. She didn't testify in the last trial. There are a lot of videos that she did, and I don't know why her lawyers let her do those videos, because it sounds bad taken out of context. The way Hank Brennan is playing them for the jury, it sounds really, really bad. But when you know the whole case, it makes much more sense. And I also think that she was gaslit a lot by Jennifer McCabe. And if you didn't see her testimony from the last trial, they cleaned her up so much this trial. She was, I don't want to say coached as far as her testimony, but her demeanor. Like, when Alan Jackson got up there and questioned her about her demeanor, that was legit. She was like a different person this time. She was nice and polite and seemed to be helpful. And last time, she was just seemed mean and nasty and just wanted to butt heads with him on everything he said. And she was like a different person. It's just unbelievable, the change from last trial to this trial. Yeah, I don't think she's going to testify either. And I think if she were to testify, because Brennan has thrown in all of these clips from all of our interviews and stuff, that he's got more ammunition now to cross-examine her on. And I don't know why she did all those interviews. People are saying that she probably did them because she needed the money for her legal defense. While that is probably true, I still don't think she should have done them. What? What are you doing, StreamYard? I think it would be a mistake for her to testify too. Brennan has too much ammunition with all those interviews and everything. And why I think they should have waited.
Put us back in session. You may be seated.
But I think there's going to be a season
Brennan, whenever you're ready.
So I think the second trial is going to be like season 2 of the documentary. So that may have been why they did it right before the second trial.
Ms. Gilman, if you can take us to 1054, and before we begin, Trooper Mechanic, is this a different location than all the video we've seen before?
Yes, this is the Waterfall Bar Grill surveillance footage from inside the lounge area. And for reference purposes, this is at this location, the timestamp is accurate to the real time.
Ms. Gilman, could you begin at 1054, please?
Here we see the defendant, Mr. O'Keefe, walk into the bar and see their friends and engage in hugs and greetings.
We'll let the Waterfall Bar videos play.
Bill.
I'm sorry, sir?
We'll let the Waterfall video bars play. We'll just let them play.
Okay.
Hey guys, it's all gone. Quit barking.
$11.46, please.
Man, that video is so
12:06,
bad.
please. $12:07.
That's a good point.
12:10, please.
And he is taking those clips. A lot of them he's taking out of context.
Did you see the last person walk out the door in that video clip?
Yes, I did.
And did you identify who that is?
Yes, it's Mr. John O'Keefe. He's wearing the two-tone gray sweatshirt with the sleeves pulled up towards the elbows.
Is that the same clothing that you found at Good Samaritan Hospital when you went to visit?
Yes, it is.
The baseball hat, did you have an opportunity to look at the hat he was wearing?
Yes, I did.
Is that consistent with the hat that you and the group found on February 3rd, 2010?
Yes, it is.
The pants?
Yes, it is.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Showing you Exhibit 108C. This is already the evidence. When you studied that photo, do you notice anything in Mr. O'Keefe's hand?
Yes, in his right hand, he's holding a short style cocktail glass with black drinking straw protruding from it as it is backdropped on the snow on the hood of the car that's parked outside.
Could we show 108C, please? Ms. Gilman, could you focus the best you can on the drink? Is that the photo you looked at?
Yes, it is.
Can you point out or explain where you see the drinking straw?
Absolutely. Right there to the right of the red indicator, you could see the straw protruding out of the glass. Mr. O'Keefe is holding in his right hand.
Thank you. You can take that down, Ms. Gilman.
I'm going to allow it.
You can take that down, Ms. Gilman. Thank you. One last matter, Trooper Buchanan. In 2024, did you obtain ring video for that time period in 2024 from Mr. O'Keefe's home?
Yes, I did.
Did you provide that ring video to a person who works for a company by the name of Aperture?
Yes, we did.
And just very basically, do you know what Aperture does?
Yes, I do.
What do they do?
They assist in scientific fashion to reconstruct, test, and evaluate, analyze vehicle-involved crashes and deaths.
Is Aperture part of the Mass State Police team?
They are not.
Are they a private company?
Yes, they are.
May I approach?
Yes.
Handing in the item to you, do you recognize it?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
It's a ring video from 2024.
So what location?
Meadows Ave.
Thank you. I move this evidence.
No objection.
Thank you.
I have no further questions.
Okay. Oh, yay, crossed. Thank you. All right, AJ, let's get him. Every question be about Proctor. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Sergeant Buchnick.
Good afternoon, sir.
I want to talk to you for a second about roles in this case, in this investigation. Would you agree with me that Michael Proctor was the lead
I told you.
investigator as well as the case agent in charge of this case?
He was assigned as the case officer for the case.
In that position, given the fact that it was his assignment, would you agree with me that he had a leadership role insofar as the investigation of the case was concerned?
I wouldn't call it a leadership role. It's more of a facilitator, liaison between the DA's personnel within the office and the state police. He also helps facilitate any missions, outstanding tasks that need to be completed.
He obviously had a supervisor, correct?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
He obviously had a supervisor, correct?
He did, yes, that would be myself.
That would be you.
Yes.
Every case has some lead trooper in your unit, correct? Every case is assigned to someone to sort of be in charge and lead the charge of the investigation. Is that right?
Every case has a case officer. that manages the investigation.
Right. And managing the investigation doesn't mean just, typing up schedules. It means actually managing the investigation, like deciding
Karen,
what
don't
search
react.
warrants are going to be written in certain circumstances. That's one example, correct?
They're responsible for writing and authoring those search warrants. Sometimes the recommendation, suggestion, or leadership comes from the supervisors or the DA staff, where their experience might dictate otherwise.
And sometimes it comes from the lead case agent himself or herself, correct?
At times, yes.
Every team, even back when you were in the military, you were on many, many teams in the Marine Corps, correct?
I'm sorry, you were speaking, facing away from me. I couldn't hear you.
Every team, including back in the time you were in the military, back in the time you were in the Marine Corps, every team has multiple individuals involved in that team, correct? That's the whole point of a team, multiple people, correct?
I would agree with you that a team consists of more than one person.
And it has to be some sort of echelon of leadership on that team, correct? Everybody's not just an equal, co-equal, correct?
We might have different duties, responsibilities, but some teams have equal rank. Yeah.
But there's going to be a team leader, right? That's a military phrase, team leader.
Yes, there is a team leader in the Marine Corps, in the rifle platoon, but not every team has a leader.
Oh, BS.
Did the team in this case, in this investigation, have a leader? Someone who was assigned as the lead case agent? Not just another officer, not just another detective, but the lead case agent.
The case officer for the investigation was Michael Proctor.
But you don't want to say lead case agent or case officer, correct?
I refer to that billet as case officer.
Your responsibility as the supervisor over this particular case officer or any other case officer that you might have, or any other trooper that you might have under your supervision, your responsibility in no small part is to supervise the individuals under your command to ensure that the case is adequately investigated. It's properly investigated. That's part of your role as a supervisor, correct?
Is one of my many responsibilities, yes.
It's partly because you have more experience, I'm guessing, than the people under your charge. Is that right?
Certainly in my position, but there are many instances where a sergeant might have less experience than a seasoned 15 to 20 years. So
fair enough. Maybe the case, but under circumstances, you earn your way the time and experience, correct?
We take an exam and then get promoted based on the exam.
Part of the responsibility that you have as a supervisor is to make sure that the case is properly investigated, and that may include making sure you have the right suspects, right? The array of suspects that may exist, you want to make sure, and you supervise to make sure that array of suspects is appropriate and proper, correct?
In every investigation, we follow the evidence, we follow the statements made, provided by eyewitnesses, witnesses in the case. Sometimes the defendants or suspects provide statements to us. At many instances, those could be contradictory statements. We follow the evidence in every investigation, and that evidence determines who the suspect, person of interest, or ultimately the defendant is.
And you want to make sure that you gather, or that your subordinates gather, that evidence in an appropriate and objective way. It's obviously the foundation of a good investigation, correct?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Maybe. You obviously, as a supervisor, want to make sure, you talked about following the evidence, you want to make sure that evidence is gathered in a way that is adequate, in a way that is objective, that in a way that is unbiased, so that you can gather the evidence that will lead you to
much evidence as possible. We conduct that gathering in the most appropriate ways possible. Sometimes there are tough decisions that have to be made where we have to collect evidence A or evidence B, and those decisions have to be made on the spot. At times it's a time-sensitive matter. At times it's a decision made by a group putting their heads together and deciding on that. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
Not really.
That's the most
Let's try it again.
accurate explanation.
Okay. You done?
I am.
Okay. Let's try that again. You want to make sure that the evidence, as a supervisor, supervising your subordinates, you want to make sure that the evidence is gathered in an appropriate way, in an objective way, correct? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. You're also doing everything you can as a supervisor and someone with the experience to make sure that the highest levels of integrity and those demands are met in any investigation that you work on.
If there was a question of integrity, those individuals would not be part of an investigation.
That includes knowing, obviously, what your subordinates are doing.
What?
During the conduct of the investigation, during the process of us investigating a crime, yes, we know what is going on, because every bit of information that comes in needs to be shared, and we need to make sure the whole team is aware of all the evidence and information that is available to us at the time.
You want to make sure that, I'm going to use a colloquial phrase, you keep tabs on those who are reporting to you, correct? What are they doing? What are they engaged in? When are they coming and going? Who are they interviewing? Things of that nature. Basic investigative things, correct?
For the most part, you can't track every single person all the time, but this is a very serious line of work. A lot depends on it. We speak for those that can no longer speak for themselves. So we do our best to conduct every investigation with integrity, honor, and get to the truth.
If you don't properly supervise, and I'm talking about your role now as a supervisor, if you don't properly engage in that supervision, it obviously increases chances for mistakes. It increases chances for bias to seep in. It increases chances that something could affect the adequacy of the investigation, correct?
That's a lot there. Can you repeat that, please? Maybe one section at a time?
Sure. If you don't properly supervise your subordinates in an investigation, failing to properly supervise them could increase the chances that mistakes are made. Isn't that right? That's why
Yes,
you supervise.
that is one possibility.
Okay. Let's break it down. It also increases chances that there could be.
Yes, the one that lost their gun was Kevin Albert, who's the brother of the guy that owned the house where he was found. Judy. Yeah, he was drunk on duty, and who was he with? He was with Brian Higgins, who was an ATF agent. Is that who he was with? Or was he with Proctor? I can't remember now. But yeah, he left his gun and his badge in the patrol car of the other officer. He was drunk. They were drunk on duty. And he's supposedly their best detective.
Be inherent biases that are seeping into the case that you want to make sure doesn't happen, correct?
I believe that human beings all have biases, but during the investigation, those biases do not affect, especially in this case, they did not affect any outcome of the investigation.
So I wasn't even talking about this case. I was talking about cases in general and your supervisory role in general. Your job as a supervisor is to seek out and make sure that there are no biases in an investigation, correct?
Absolutely.
You want to make sure that any investigation as a supervisor, any investigation that is under your charge.
That is right.
And there's a chain of command for that, right? Meaning someone under your charge needs to report up the chain of command to you, and you have supervisors to whom you report, correct?
Yes, it's a paramilitary structure, and it is in order for the colonel to keep command and control over the entire a reporting up and down within the Massachusetts State Police.
And you have, by the way, what's your chain of command? Who did you report to back in 2022?
I directly reported to Detective Lieutenant Tully.
Oh, I didn't know that.
especially in a case, you mentioned this case a second ago, especially in a case like this, a homicide investigation, especially in a homicide investigation involving a police officer, you have to maintain your knowledge and intimate knowledge or that what they're doing fits what you believe to be the proper protocol. In other words, you're not just going to let people loose. You're going to watch what they're doing and actually supervise them, correct?
Yes, absolutely. We are professionals, and we conduct each and every investigation with that in mind and with the integrity that is necessary.
You just used the word I was about to use. That ensures the adequacy of the investigation, correct?
Yes.
To use your word, that ensures the integrity of the investigation. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
As you sit here today, do you believe that this investigation, now I'm going to turn to this investigation, was conducted with professionalism, with competence, integrity?
This investigation was evidence collected, all the statements collected pointed in one direction. There was no bias influence on the evidence, on the information that was collected, or which direction the investigation pointed naturally.
Former Trooper Michael Proctor was the
Former.
person who's the assigned case agent, the lead case agent in this particular investigation, correct?
Michael Proctor was the case officer for this investigation.
He was assigned ultimately, to use another phrase, as the lead investigator, wasn't he?
I'm not going to agree with you.
Is there a reason that you want to try to distance yourself from naming Michael Proctor as the lead investigator in the case? Is there some reason?
I am not trying to distance myself. All I'm saying is the term that I use is the case officer. We're simply case managers. There's no leading investigation in any direction.
You called him lead
So
last
in
time.
your mind, well, let me ask you this. He's a case officer, another word for that, synonym would be an investigator, right? He's a detective, an investigator, correct?
He is a detective, yes.
And he was the one who was assigned by the Massachusetts State Police because of his on-call status that night, or that morning, January 29th, 2022, he was assigned to the case, correct?
Michael,
Yes or no? Assigned to the case. That's all I'm asking.
well, you said a lot before that. So
I said he was assigned to the case. What I said before that was January 29th, 2022. He was assigned by the Massachusetts State Police as the case officer for this case, right?
no,
Who was?
he was assigned to be on call a month prior. Just because he was on call, he was assigned the case as a result. He was not assigned the case right there and then, because his assignment began much earlier in the day.
Sorry, we can do this all day, I suppose. He was on call.
He
on
was.
January 29th, correct?
He was.
Because he was on call, any case that happened to come in would be assigned to whom?
To the on-call trooper that's on the schedule.
Which was whom?
It was Michael Proctor.
Let me just ask you this. Do you believe that Michael Proctor, his involvement in this case, taints the investigation? Tainted the investigation?
No.
Not at all.
The investigation was done with honor, integrity, and all the evidence pointed in one direction only.
Honor and integrity by Michael Proctor?
Was that a question? I'm sorry.
Sure is. Everything I say is a question. Honor and integrity by Michael Proctor, Sergeant?
Sustain to the comment. Go ahead and ask it again, Mr.
I'll ask you
Jackson.
again. You said honor and integrity. Honor and integrity by Michael Proctor? Okay.
I'll allow it.
The investigation was conducted with honor and integrity, and all the evidence pointed in one direction and one direction only.
So, Sergeant Buchanan, you don't want to answer my question, correct?
I will answer your question, absolutely.
Do you think this case was handled with honor and integrity by Michael Proctor, Sergeant?
The investigation was handled with integrity by Michael Proctor.
Ask him why he was fired then.
You do know that he touched or had input in nearly every part of this case, obviously, as the case officer, correct?
He managed the case.
So he had some input or had some connection to nearly every part of the case, be it the physical evidence, the search warrants, the interviews, things of that nature.
He was one of the involved with collecting evidence, conducting interviews, and signing affidavits for the search warrants.
He didn't take a minor role in this case. He had a major role in this case. Would you at least agree with that?
He had a role that was more significant than others. A major role would, to me, suggest that he had 51% or more. And with a team of the size that we had working on this case, he did not have a major role.
So you believe, as you sit here today, your testimony is Michael Proctor did not have a major role in this investigation of Commonwealth versus Karen Reed because he didn't have 51% of something? That's your testimony?
That's the way I understand it, yes.
Okay. You're drafted affidavits that were attendant to those search warrants in this case, correct?
Am I aware of affidavits drafted
Search warrants and affidavits.
in support of the search warrants?
Correct.
Yes, I am.
All right. You're also aware that there was a good amount of physical evidence that was handled in this case, recovered, touched, booked, assigned or booked into the lab, things of that nature?
I am aware of the evidence involved in this case, yes.
May I approach the witness? Your Honor?
Yes.
Sergeant Buchanan, I've handed you a binder, and it's tabbed just for your convenience, so I don't have to walk back and forth. With
Thank
the
you,
court's
sir.
permission.
Yes.
Can you open tab 1? I'm not going to ask you to read the entire search warrant, but is that a search warrant that ends in 07?
Yes, it is.
And it's for generally Verizon records for Miss Reed's cell phone.
No, I would not agree with you, sir.
What is that search warrant for?
It's for Verizon records for a VIN number, which looks like a vehicle.
Is that the vehicle, the SUV, the Lexus SUV in this case?
I do not know for sure because it doesn't have that identifier here, and I don't know the VIN number off the top of my head.
Okay, fair enough. Who's the affiant?
Michael Proctor.
Can you turn to tab 2? Is that a search warrant ending in the number 14?
Give me 1 second.
I'm sorry,
I don't want to
13.
ruin your presentation here.
Search warrant ending in 13. I misspoke.
Okay.
Is that a search warrant for, generally speaking, Karen Reed's cell phone?
The quality of this photocopy is so poor, I cannot make out exactly what it's for, but there is an overlay of print. I can read what is presented to me, if that's what you want me to do. I do not know if this is an sent a copy of a search warrant.
Let's just look at the affidavit. Can you tell me who the affiant is?
On this document, the affiant is Michael Proctor.
Can you turn to tab? By the way, just staying with that for a second, you said you don't recognize it. Do you recognize it as being attendant to this case?
The application or the affidavit?
The search warrant. Well,
Again,
they go
the
together.
The application or the together?
They go together.
I understand that, but I'm asking which document you want me to.
The document in total. In other words, it's not a search warrant dealing with a different case. It's dealing with Ms. Reed's case, correct?
Again, I cannot say from the search warrant because of the quality of it. The addendum A appears to be with this case.
Okay. Have
And
you ever
the
seen it before?
I'm sorry?
Have you ever seen it before, this search warrant?
I haven't read the whole thing, so I can't testify to that.
So this could be a search warrant that you never even saw?
Based on what you're presenting to me, never having seen or not having read all the details of it, I cannot say whether I've seen it before or not.
So you're not sure that Michael Proctor didn't just do the search warrant without your knowledge? As you sit here.
I don't know if this is truly Michael Proctor's product.
Think that might be a forgery? His
I'm
name?
sorry?
You think that might be a forgery at the end of that affidavit?
Well, for one, it's not signed. So I don't know who produced this. What I'm saying to you is I don't know who produced this. The quality of the first document, the narrative, I don't know who produced it. Show me a search with an affidavit from court, and a stamp and a stamp seal from. I will tell you that that's what it appears to be. What you've shown me here, I don't know what this is.
Otherwise, looking at that document, the affidavit, seeing the addendum, seeing Michael Proctor's name on it, no clue whether or not that's a warrant that's attendant to this case that Michael Proctor drafted and submitted. You have no clue.
I can't take you at your word.
I'm not asking you to take me at my word, sir. I'm not testifying. I'm asking you to take the document at its word. Do you recognize it or not? If you don't, you don't.
I do not know.
Okay, let's turn to tab 3. Does that appear to be a search warrant ending in the number 14?
Yes, it is.
And does that appear to generally be associated with Ring camera footage at One Meadows? Or can you not tell that?
It has an email address, an associated MAC address. So yes, that's what it appears to be.
Okay. Can you tell me who the affiant is?
Again, this is not a signed search warrant. This is just an affidavit.
Whose name is at the bottom of it?
The name at the bottom printed is Michael Proctor.
Can you turn to tab 4? Does that appear to be a search warrant ending in the number 04?
Yes, it does.
And does that appear to be for Ring footage also at One Meadows in 2023?
Based on the application addendum A, it's the same email address associated with the previous location of Meadows, yes.
Who's the affiant or affiant?
Michael Proctor.
Can you turn to tab 5? Does that appear to be a police report?
It does.
And do you see a reference in that police report for a search warrant ending in 10 for a telematics system regarding Miss Reed's SUV? And it may speed things up if you look at page 2.
There is a reference to it, yes.
Okay. Whose report is that?
It's Trooper Nicholas Guarino's report.
And who is referred to on page 2 as seeking the search warrant ending in 10?
That search warrant was issued at Stone District Court and presented by Trooper Proctor.
Turn to tab 6, if you wouldn't mind. Do you see a search warrant ending in the number 77?
I see the application, yes.
And this deals with Google, some geofence data, correct?
Yes, it is.
Who's the affiant?
And this search warrant is not signed, so but I would say this isn't an actual search warrant, but it seems like at the bottom it says Trooper Michael Proctor.
You turn to tab 7. Does that appear to be a report authored by Nicholas Guarino?
It does.
Does that deal with John O'Keefe's cell phone?
It's a report written by Nicholas Guarino referencing Mr. O'Keefe's cell phone, yes.
And it indicates that Mr. O'Keefe's cell phone was seized by a particular trooper?
That's what the report indicates, yes.
Who's the,
Trooper Proctor secured the cell phone.
turn to tab 8, if you don't mind. Do you see a similar?
Yes.
And do you see reference to Karen, pardon me, Karen Reed's cell phone having been seized?
Yes.
And that was seized by the also, correct?
Yeah, him and I were there together.
His name is in the report, though.
Yes, his name is in the report.
Your name is not in the report, is it? Turn to tab. Early spring 2022, there was a CPD video requested by somebody, correct?
Yes.
Who did you indicate requested that CPD video?
The case officer, Trooper Proctor.
Well, actually, in this instance, you actually got the video and deleted to him, correct? At his request. Because the case officer, he correct?
Absolutely. We are.
Ask for things to be delivered to him,
Yes.
even by his supervisor.
Yes, absolutely.
If you don't mind turning to tab 10, please. Do you recognize that report?
I'm sorry. Still turning. It's the same report.
Same report, different paragraph, also talking about, or the different sentence, talking about a July 2023 CPD or Canton Police Department video that was also requested, correct?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
Sure. That particular part of the report, where I'm directing your attention to July of 2023, there was a Canton Police Department video requested by someone, correct?
Yes.
Who was that requested by?
Trooper Proctor.
And who delivered it to Trooper Proctor?
I did.
Turn to tab 11, please. You see a document referencing the analysis of Canton Town Library videos.
I do.
And who is it that's listed as having received and reviewed and analyzed the town library videos?
Give me just 1 second. I have to read the report. It was Trooper Proctor that analyzed the video and wrote up the timeline.
Thank you. Sergeant, if you'll turn to tab 12. Do you recognize that as being a November 2023 report?
Yes, it's report number 83.
And who authored that report?
This report is authored by Trooper Michael Proctor.
Does that indicate, and I'm not going to ask you to go through the entirety of the report, but if you scan that report, does that indicate certain items of evidence that Trooper Proctor claimed to have recovered on his own? Pieces of plastic, small black plastic, clear plastic, fragment of glass on February 11th, 2022, 3 pieces of clear plastic on February 11th, 2022, clear and red plastic pieces on February 18th, 2022. Is all that referenced in there?
Those items are documented in this report as were collected. Yes.
And those are all documented as having been collected by Trooper Proctor himself, correct?
Yes, yes, they were.
And if you'll turn to tab 13. This is an evidence submission form, correct?
I'm sorry, 13?
Tab 13, yes, sir.
Yes, it's a copy of an evidence submission form from March 14th, 2022.
And that indicates submission of certain items of physical evidence from Massachusetts State Police custody to the crime lab, correct?
I would say so, based on this copy's information on there. Yes, I would say so.
And who's the person who submitted the items that I'll ask you about?
It is Trooper Michael Proctor.
And those items include clothing, is that right? We don't have to go through them line by line, but generally, you see clothing items mentioned on there?
The first line is a clothing item, yes.
That includes a lot of what we saw today, Sergeant Buchanan, the shirt, the orange shirt, the sweatshirt, blue jeans, belt, correct?
Blue jeans, belt. What was the other thing that you listed?
Shirts.
There was a shirt, yes.
It also lists certain items of plastic, certain items of glass, is that right?
Some of those items are listed, yes.
And it even mentions the straw that you talked to Mr. Brennan about, correct?
Yes,
And all of those items were submitted on March 14th, 2022, correct?
Exactly.
that's what the form indicates, yes.
And all of those items were submitted by Michael Proctor from his custody and control
If not
to the
all of
crime
it
lab,
is
correct?
normal.
That's who signed the form.
So of the things that, according to the form at least, and your experience with forms of this nature, it was Michael Proctor who possessed and controlled those items before they were turned over to the to the crime lab, correct?
That would be accurate, yes.
So he would have maintained all of it, is that right? At least at some point?
They would have been in his custody as he's transporting them for processing at the lab, of course.
And then after he maintained control of it, eventually he turned it over and submitted those items, correct?
If the form is accurate, then yes, that's absolutely right.
So we've just gone through a few things. What you and I have just gone through is not nearly everything that Michael Proctor was involved with in terms of this investigation, correct? We didn't talk about witness interviews, right?
We did not talk about witness interviews,
So
no.
there's a lot more that Michael Proctor on a day-to-day basis as the case officer was involved in addition to what you and I have just talked about, correct?
Yes, there was many more things he was involved in. As I mentioned, that was just report 83. There's 100+ reports in this case that were written. There's a lot of evidence that was collected and processed. So he had a part in the investigation as the case officer managing the tasks. But there's a lot of people involved in this investigation.
So he touched or authored or reviewed or controlled at least every bit of what you and I have talked about this morning, all these items that we've just talked about, correct?
He is referenced or is his name appears on most of these documents, yes, if
As a matter
not
of
all.
fact,
If not all.
Of the
If
ones
not.
that we just went through, he's not just referenced, he's the author of every single one of them, correct?
No, Nicholas Garino wrote some of these reports.
Sorry, the author of the search warrant. I asked you to look at Nicholas Garino's report to reference the search warrant that Nicholas Garino referenced in his report, and Michael Proctor was the author of that search warrant, correct?
Again, I'd hate to do this to you, but
Oh, I don't think you do.
some of these search warrants could not be authenticated. I don't know what these documents were. I didn't read them, so I can't tell you that he was the author. Like what you presented, I can't speak to.
You just made my point. Even as the supervisor, you don't know everything that Michael Proctor was doing, do you?
No, it's impossible to know everything somebody was doing.
Got it. Especially the case officer on this case, as busy as he was, right?
I'm sorry?
Especially the case officer on this case, as busy as he was, Michael Proctor, right?
He was keeping us and his supervisors abreast of what was happening, the next step, the search warrants he was writing, the evidence that was being collected, the interviews that are being conducted, court dates and motions and stuff like that.
So he would do the work and then keep you, the word you just used, keep you abreast of that work.
Right, unless I was involved with the investigation myself. We did a ton of interviews together as I authored some of these reports as well. I said there was 100+ reports.
Sir, you were notified on January 29th, 2022, that a Boston police officer was found gravely injured in front of 34 Fairview in the lawn, in the yard, correct?
I know.
No, that is not correct.
What were you notified of?
When the notification came in, it was that there was a male party found in the snowbank.
At some point, you learned that male party was John O'Keefe, a police officer, correct?
At some point, we did learn that he was a Boston police officer.
Matter of fact, you learned that morning. May not have been the first notification, but certainly early that morning, you knew that John O'Keefe was a Boston police officer.
At some point, we learned. I don't remember exactly when, if it was morning, just after 12. I don't know when, but we did learn that he was a Boston police officer.
And I'm not asking about what Trooper Proctor learned, but what you learned. You learned that he was a Boston police officer, correct?
At some point, I learned that he was a Boston police officer, yes.
And on January 29th, did you ever respond to 34 Fairview Road at any time?
On January 29th, 2022, at no point in time did I or Michael Proctor, who was with me the whole time, ever respond to 34 Fairview Road.
So the answer to my question, very simply, is no, right?
That's correct.
You just answered this question as well, but I want to make sure we're absolutely clear. Your Honor, may I approach? I don't want that binder to be in this way. At no point on January 29th, 2022, did Michael Proctor respond to 34 Fairview either, did he?
No, he did not.
You already indicated and you described in some detail that Massachusetts State Police took over the investigation from Canton Police Department around 8 or 9 a.m., correct? Following certain protocols.
Yes, at some point in the morning, once it was determined that Mr. O'Keefe was gravely injured and was being transported to the hospital with no signs of life, and we were advised that he had a estimated 10% of survival rate, we engaged our services and responded to Canton Police to begin the investigation.
So the answer to that question is yes, correct?
Yes.
You'll often work with a local police agency, even though a police department, even though Massachusetts State Police may have statutory jurisdiction over the case because it's a homicide, right?
Yes, part of our mission is to aid and assist local police departments when they request it. In this specific situation, as I stated earlier, the DA's office has exclusive jurisdiction over death investigations, and our office has that responsibility of investigating those cases. But we work very well with local departments.
So the answer to that question is yes, correct?
Yes.
If you can answer my question yes or no, this will go a lot faster. In this case, even though you oftentimes work with local law enforcement agencies, it was determined that you would not continue working with Canton PD because of a conflict or the perception of a potential conflict of interest, correct?
To alleviate any perception, not that one existed, the Canton Police Department recused themselves from being involved in the interview portion of the investigation.
And that's in no small part because the lawn on which Mr. O'Keefe was found belongs to to Brian Albert, and Kevin Albert, Brian Albert's brother, worked as a detective at Canton Police Department, correct?
That was my understanding why they chose to take those steps.
Your first documented action in this case was to call the medical examiner's office, first documented action, not the first thing you did. The first thing that you documented that you did was to call the medical examiner's office at about 10:41 a.m., correct? There's a report where we can look at the earliest thing that you did, and it's actually written down and documented. You know what I mean by documented? Written on a piece of paper.
In that respect of documentation, I would have to look into it. I believe there was something probably before that, since there was a documentation of us getting notified of the incident.
At 10:41, let me just ask it a little bit more straightforward if I can, just get to the point. At 10:41 a.m., you called the office to inform them that Mr. O'Keefe, quote, was struck in the face with a cocktail glass, or at least appeared to be, correct?
That is in part what I advised the medical examiner's office, where they are responsible for the medical portion of.
Objection, Your Honor. May we approach briefly?
Okay.
I don't know why he's gonna ask Bev for a favor. Like, don't poke the bear. She's being good. Don't poke the bear. I agree with you 100%. I think they did offer her a plea, but she turned it down because it wasn't just a DUI. It was like a manslaughter or second degree or something. I don't remember what it was. But, I mean, there's lots of theories. One of the theories is that Chris Albert, who is Brian Albert's brother, and his son Colin Albert were drug dealers. I don't know if that's true or not. That's just one of the theories. And that they confronted John because he worked for Boston. And
All right, so Sergeant, I'm going to ask you to do your best to answer the question that's asked.
Yes, Your Honor.
And so that was what happened. They confronted him about it. And then they
May I have just a moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
because they didn't like her because she was an outsider and it was
Did you
convenient
contact
for her.
the medical examiner's office and did you state to them that there was a possibility that the decedent, John O'Keefe, was struck in the face with a cocktail glass?
I don't recall my words exactly, but that sounds accurate to what I might have said.
At least your initial investigation during those early morning hours, those critical hours, led you to believe at least that there was a possibility that there was a physical altercation, correct?
Yes.
What steps did you take at that moment to determine whether or not anybody in the house may have been involved in that physical altercation that you thought was a possibility?
That's a compound question. I have to answer it separately.
Answer it however you want to. It's an open-ended question, which is unlike me. What steps did you take to, at that moment, to determine whether or not anybody in the house could have been involved in that possible physical altercation that you just described?
We interviewed the homeowner and two witnesses that were in that house.
You never went into the house, did you? On January 29th, at least.
I personally did not go in the house.
You did not secure that house or remove the occupants, did you?
Which day?
January 29th. I'm talking about the morning of January 29th.
I did not know.
You did not secure the yard as a crime scene, correct?
That's correct.
You didn't conduct any search of that house.
No, I did not.
You didn't take any photographs of the interior of that house.
I did not.
You didn't ask a forensic criminalist to join you and process the house, correct?
That is correct.
You didn't set up a crime scene log to determine who is coming in and going out of the potential crime scene.
I did not.
No one actually documented the crime scene by taking contextual photographs and then close-up photographs, etc., during those early morning hours, correct?
I cannot.
And you didn't cause that to be done.
I did not do that.
Crime scene services section, what is that?
It's a unit, specialized unit on the state police. They are specially trained with documentation, photographs, video, latent fingerprints, foot and tire impressions, footwear and tire impressions. They assist other investigators in documenting and processing scenes.
Did you contact CSSS to process the house or the yard or the area adjacent to the yard?
Which house, sir?
34 Fairview, Sergeant Buchanan. Do you think I was talking about a different house?
House?
Yes, I did.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
Let's stick with 34 Fairview, where John O'Keefe's body was found. Did you call CSSS out to the scene to process that house?
I did not contact crime scene services on January 29th to the area of 34 Fairview Road to the lawn where John O'Keefe's body was found.
You mentioned that you conducted interviews that day, correct?
That's correct.
Where were those interviews conducted?
The first interview was conducted at Canton Police Department. The second, third, and fourth were conducted at a residence in Canton.
Who was down the police?
The
What was the
fifth,
I'm sorry, what was the first interview at Canton Police Department that morning?
Sergeant Good.
So other than Sergeant Good, I'm talking about civilian witnesses. You mentioned 3 civilian witnesses. Where were those 3 witnesses interviewed?
At a residence in Canton.
But not at 34 Fairview,
Who's
just to be clear.
They were not at 34 Fairview, no.
They had been at 34 Fairview, though, hadn't they? All 3 of them.
Yes, they had.
As a matter of fact, Michael Proctor spoke to at least one of them, while she was at 34 Fairview, correct?
I don't know.
Weren't you with Michael Proctor when he spoke to Jennifer McCabe?
Which time, sir?
The first time he called her to set up the interview that morning on January 29th.
I don't know where Jennifer McCabe was. I can't testify to that. I have no idea.
So if that call was made, if she talked about that call being made, that was made by Michael Proctor, not by outside of your presence.
Can you repeat that?
Sure. If there was a call made to Jennifer McCabe by Michael Proctor that morning, that was outside your presence.
Not necessarily. I just did not know where she was.
So the only 3 people you interviewed were Jennifer McCabe,
100%. I've been
Matt
working
McCabe,
for a year.
and Brian Albert, correct?
Not correct.
Who else?
The defendant.
Other than Miss Reed, and before you got to Miss Reed, because you didn't get to Miss Reed till 3:34, correct? In the afternoon.
I don't know exactly what time we began the conversation.
I'm talking about in the morning when you were trying to figure out what was going on. You interviewed 3 people,
Yes, we did.
3 civilians.
At one point, we interviewed 3 civilians, the homeowner at 34 Fairview Road, and 2 witnesses that were with Mr. O'Keefe and the defendant the night prior, and then one of the witnesses that was with the defendant when Mr. O'Keefe,
Individuals that you may be assigned at a time or shortly before.
based on the information that we had at that time, one of the individuals was with him right before he was seen alive, and the other
Right
two,
before he was last seen alive.
one of the individuals was with him right before he was last seen alive, and two of the individuals saw the defendant and Mr. O'Keefe together.
And those same two individuals were also with Mr. O'Keefe just minutes before he was last seen alive. The waterfall, correct?
All three of the individuals were with Mr. O'Keefe and the defendant at Waterfall, yes.
And all three of the individuals were also at 34 Fairview when Mr. O'Keefe arrived. You had that information, didn't you?
We did not have information of Mr. O'Keefe arriving at the house. He was dropped off on the lawn.
And all three people, all three, were either named McCabe or Albert. Those are the three people that you had information from, correct?
Which information? We had information for a lot of different sources at that point in time.
I'm talking about the first three interviews that you did, the first three civilian interviews you did that morning. Still on the same thing. You mentioned talking to three people at a residence in Canton. Brian Albert, Jim McCabe, Matt McCabe. All three were at 34 Fairview when they indicated John O'Keefe arrived in an SUV. They all told you that, right?
They were inside the home when the defendant and Mr. O'Keefe arrived in the SUV.
These are the very people that would have a motive to lie if they were somehow involved, right?
Can you answer that, Sergeant?
No, Your Honor.
You're a professional investigator,
You can answer that.
correct?
That's correct.
Homicide investigator, right?
That's correct.
Many years of experience, right? Say yes?
I don't know what many means to you,
No,
but
of course not. Let me, how many years of experience do you have?
in homicide,
Correct.
10 next week.
Okay. Does that sound like many?
I didn't answer the first time because I don't know what you would think many is.
Right. Suspects ever lied to you?
Yes.
Suspects lie to you all the time, don't they?
Yes, he did.
All the time is not accurate. They lie about certain things to create an alibi for themselves and state contradicting facts or fabricated stories.
And if someone
all the
has
time would mean that they're constantly lying about everything.
you understand the colloquialism?
I know the term colloquialism.
Okay, let's try. Involved. Others who were involved in the death of John O'Keefe, who they were close to, they would have a motive to lie about that, correct?
Objection.
But you took these three individuals just at their word, based on those first three interviews. Search the house. We've already talked about that, right?
I did not go into 34 Fairview. No, I did not.
You didn't ask them to come together the state, correct?
I asked them to come to the station.
As a matter of fact, when you went to interview Jennifer McCabe at her home, Brian Albert happened to be there, correct?
He was there, and I was able to conduct the interview at the house with Brian Albert, yes.
Do you find that odd?
Absolutely not.
Totally normal for you to conduct a formal interview in a homicide case and have an extra person show up at the house just to?
Cooperating witnesses always try and be assisting. So cooperating witnesses would assist us.
You just use the word always. You don't know what all the time means. But they always try to be assistant.
Well, they're cooperating. It's in the nature.
They always try to help you out.
I love
Okay,
it.
maybe I misspoke.
Like-
They are cooperating witnesses. So always is such a finite, definitive statement. I apologize for using it.
And if an investigator were keeping an open mind, right, open to all possibilities at the beginning of the investigation, someone that you now are calling a cooperating witness might well be a suspect who's lying, correct?
Yes.
That's
there's
a possibility.
That is a possibility, yes.
He asked about text.
May I have just a moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
More text. Ask about the text.
I want to shift gears for a second, Sergeant Buchanan, and ask you about some of the physical evidence in the case. You and Mr. Proctor collected the gray sweatshirt and the orange T-shirt that we saw entered into evidence today, correct?
That's correct.
You talked about finding that evidence at Good Samaritan Hospital. Is that right?
That is where it was seized from, yes.
You described it as being on the floor, correct?
That's correct.
Where on the floor was it when you first saw it? Was it on?
It was on the hospital floor, correct?
All right.
It only pointed in one direction because that's the direction they wanted it to point in. They made sure it didn't point any other directions.
Yes.
Do you recognize that, sir?
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize it?
It's one of the photographs taken, I remember him,
Shirts.
depicted on the floor to the left side, yes.
Your Honor, I'd ask that be marked and entered into evidence.
No objection.
If it See, look at that, I'm psychic. All we're seeing right now is a fan. Didn't miss anything. Come on, StreamYard, share the page. Thank you. Why do you do this to me? Judy. Come on, StreamYard. Why do you do this?
Your Honor, with
Yes.
Exhibit 110, you just mentioned seeing an orange shirt. Do you have a laser pointer with you? If you don't, I can grab you one.
I do.
Can you point for the jurors where you were describing the orange? Just pick whichever TV you want to use.
Yes.
It does appear to be on top of possibly a darker item of clothing, possibly the jeans. I'm not sure exactly from here
Okay.
what that is.
Do you believe, as you sit here, and I'm asking it open because I don't know what the answer is. Do you believe, as you sit here, that that's the orange shirt and or the gray sweatshirt and or the jeans?
If we can zoom in, I could probably pick out the pattern.
Oh, his body must be in the picture. Maybe
So
that's
from here, it looks like it's a cut fabric, indicating that it most likely is the orange shirt. The jeans, you can see the belt loop through the jeans on the left side. I would say that that is
Zoom that for me. One more question. You see Mr. O'Keefe's
perfect.
left leg and right leg from about the little lower than mid thigh down, correct?
mid thigh.
Cuts or abrasions on that right knee.
Not from this point, no.
Thank you. We can take that down. May I approach?
Yes.
Oh, the laser point?
Yeah.
Which one? I think it's this one. They're both the same.
I had one more question on that photo. Sorry about that. Can we display the photo one more time, Ms. Johnson? We don't need to turn the lights off. Take a look to the left. Could you zoom in on the chair? Do you see that item sitting on the chair, Sergeant?
Yes, I do.
What is that?
That is either mine or Michael Proctor's notepad binder.
Thank you. We can take that down. Concerning the two shirts that you earlier testified to as being sopping wet, did you bag those shirts? Well, did you bag those shirts, or did Michael Proctor bag those shirts?
We
StreamYard does this every after.
could be wrong. Maybe I picked it up. He held the bag.
That's fine. The two of you together got them in a bag.
Yes.
Was it a paper bag or a plastic bag?
It was a large paper bag, the size of like a lawn leaf bag. you would get for disposing your yard waste.
Okay, is it specifically an evidence bag, or was it something that y'all came up with on the spot?
It's a bag that was provided by Crime Scene Services.
Okay, so it's an official law enforcement
What's in
type
stock?
bag. What, a grocery bag?
It was not a grocery bag. It was a large bag.
Okay, understood. Did both shirts go in the same bag?
All the clothing items that were in the pile went into the same bag.
Does that include the jeans and belt and boxer shorts?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. You went from Good Samaritan, straight to Dighton, correct?
Yes.
And you are the one that put the bag in your the super cab of your pickup truck.
Yes.
And then from Dighton, you went over to Canton PD. Is that right?
Yes, we did.
And then from Canton PD, ultimately, before the night was out, you ended up back at the Norfolk DA's office, which is where you and Michael Proctor officed at the time, correct?
Yes.
When exactly, if you recall, did you lay out the clothing? You indicated it was sopping wet. You laid it out on a butcher paper. When was that?
It was during the evening hours. Once we arrived to the Canton office.
It was about 10 p.m., I'm guessing.
No, it was before that.
It was before 10.
Yes.
I have just a moment.
Yes.
Sergeant, I just want to get the record as clear as possible. Did you testify at a hearing last year, at a proceeding last year here in this courtroom, that it was about 10 o'clock that you finally got the clothing laid out on the butcher paper?
Based on the content of the question,
Trying to hold to get it as clear as possible. Mayor, approach.
Yes.
Highlighted portion, sir. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Office to lay out those items on the butcher paper. And that was about your prior testimony. It was,
the items were laid out. I indicated previously it was 10 o'clock approximately.
you didn't stay there all night with those clothes.
No, I did not.
You left the clothes with Michael Proctor, did you not?
I can't testify to leaving them, quote unquote, in the drying area on the butcher paper. And then at some point, I secured from the office. I don't have a memory if he left with me or if he remained to do additional tasks in the office to, you know.
You
Whatever we have to
indicated
do.
that those clothes stayed in that room starting on January 29th, 2022, so that they could dry, correct?
That's correct, sir.
Ultimately, they were bagged after they were dried, correct?
At some point they were, yes.
Who had access to that room where they were laid out on butcher paper in those intervening, those subsequent days?
Anyone that had access to the office with a proper key card authorization would have access to that
And
area.
of course, that includes you as a supervisor, correct?
It does.
It also includes Michael Proctor.
It does.
And those items were bagged on February 4th. Is that right?
I don't have a specific memory, but if you can show me a document suggesting that and supporting that statement, I will definitely look at it.
Clothing items were in at this point. Just the jeans.
Earlier today,
Yes.
I do remember looking at the bag.
Okay. And that's when items are.
It has multiple labels, yes.
Okay. Did you label today indicated it was bagged on February 4th? May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
If you could take a look at those 3 pages briefly, that's a colloquy that may refresh your recollection.
I have to call.
Back and forth conversation.
I see.
I guess not. Because it says they're on. But it's not showing them. It usually does. Because we have laughed at the closed captioning lots of times.
May I approach?
Yes.
Sir. Did reviewing that document refresh your recollection as to the date that those items were ultimately bagged and labeled?
Yes, based on the tag on the bag, when I previously looked at it, it appears that the tag was printed on 2/4/22.
And that would be consistent with the time that the items are actually placed in the bag,
I don't know that to be true.
because you didn't place them in the bag, Trooper Proctor did, correct? I'm sorry, former Trooper Proctor did.
I don't know who placed them in the bag.
But it wasn't you.
It was not me, no.
But the case officer, Mr. Proctor, had access to that room and was taking control over those clothing items for those 6 days that they were drying on the butcher paper, correct?
That's not necessarily correct. It could have been the evidence officers bagging the evidence once it's dried and processing it. I highly doubt Trooper Proctor had access to the beast machine to print that label.
Right. I'm not asking if he printed the label. I'm asking if he bagged the item and walked it up to the evidence locker and the label was printed up there.
Again, I don't know who bagged the items.
That would be normal protocol, though, correct?
Somebody else bagging the items?
No, the case officer bagging the items. He's the one that seized it along with you. He laid them out on the butcher paper along with you. He would be the one to gather them up. I mean, the evidence officer's not going to come down there and do that without the case officer knowing, correct?
Not necessarily. The evidence officer's responsibility is to handle the evidence. So I don't know who handled the evidence that day.
How would the evidence officer know to go down there? How would he know that there were clothing items being laid out to dry on butcher paper unless the case officer told him?
They would walk by it every day and see it. That's their workstation. So
Right.
they would know that, hey, this evidence is drying. There's only 4 detectives in the office at that time working on this case. We communicate daily.
Right.
So they would know that, hey, it's dried. Let's bag it up.
Well, that's a lot of speculation, especially from the supervisor, literally, who just said, I have no idea who bagged it up. They weren't communicating with you, were they?
I was giving you an explanation of what could have happened.
Right. Speculation about what could have happened, right?
Well, I certainly did not bag that item.
Right. But your best estimate would be, knowing the protocols at the MSP and in your unit, would be the case officer who's controlling the items of evidence would have bagged it and submitted into the evidence locker.
I do not know who bagged it.
So for 6 days, anybody who had access to that room could have handled that clothing in any way they wanted to.
That's correct.
And that includes former Trooper Michael Proctor.
That's correct.
He's been called former trooper every chance he gets.
Do you have any kind of log to document what was happening or who was handling those items of clothing during that 6-day period before it was bagged into evidence? Any kind of a log?
I don't have a document logging the clothing laying out there. It was documented in reports and processing, I believe.
Have
But
you ever seen a log? I'm not talking about a report after the fact. I'm talking about a log, real-time log, indicating who may have come in and handled or touched or manipulated those clothes in that 6-day span of time before the fact.
I have never seen a log like that, no.
The fact is, we don't have a single document establishing the chain of custody for those items between January 29th and February 4th. That's correct, isn't it?
That is absolutely not correct.
Where's the log or the document logging what happened to it?
We seized the clothing. It was in our possession. It was transferred for processing.
Sergeant, I'm asking you about a log, a written piece of paper, something that looks like this. It's got writing on it that logs the item between January 29th and February 4th. That doesn't exist, does it?
We did not create a log to document the documentation,
Thank
so it'd be redundant, really.
Redundant? I don't
You
think
indicated on direct examination that you personally participated in 2 searches at 34 Fairview, one on February 4th, one on February 10th. Is that right?
That is not right.
What did I get wrong?
said on direct.
I was also there on the 3rd, 4th, and 10th.
Who did you go with on the 3rd?
That was Trooper DeChico, Michael Proctor, and I conducting the first excavation.
And about what time was that?
It was during the morning hours. I think earlier I said it was somewhere between 8:39, 9:30. I could have been half an hour later. I'm not exactly positive on the exact time we began the excavation.
And the other 2 searches were the next day, February 4th, and then February 10th.
The next time I was at Fairview Road and involved in a collection of evidence was on the 4th, when Canton PD documented a one piece and I collected. And then
Was anything recovered on February, let's take them in order, on February 3rd?
Yes, Mr. O'Keefe's hat, straw, I believe red and clear plastic taillight pieces. There was those are the items that were recovered amongst.
That's on the 3rd. Okay, what about the 4th?
The 4th was the red taillight piece that we displayed, I believe, that Canton PD notified me of when I was already en route there.
When you say Canton PD, who was it that notified you, if you remember?
There was, at the scene, there was Chief Berkowitz, a couple of detectives.
Sergeant Lank, does that sound right?
I do not know. I can't say yes or no. I don't recall specifically. It was raining hard, so I grabbed the item and left.
Okay. Did you write a report? I'm gonna combine these into all 3 dates together. Did you write any report? Actually, I won't do that. Let me ask him individually. Did you report about your search on the 3rd?
Somebody authored a report. I'm not
Did you? I'm asking about you.
I can't. There's over 100 reports. I'd have to take a look which report documents my activity that day.
Do you remember, as you sit here, authoring a report about your conduct or your activity on February 4th, the next day?
I don't have a memory of it, no.
Do you have a memory of authoring a report yourself about your conduct on February 10th, your activity on February 10th?
I don't have a memory of it. It could have happened. I just don't have a memory.
The reality is that no report was written about any of these searches until November 4th, 2023. Correct?
That could be possible, yes.
So literally the documentation of these 3 searches about which you've testified today, the documentation did not exist until, what is that math, 17, 18 months later?
That is not true. Each bag that the evidence went into was documented, the time, location, who recovered it, where it was recovered, and brief description of the items that were recovered from the scene.
And by the way, we're going to get to that in a second, the evidence bags. A report is designed to memorialize exactly what happens, when it happens, why it happened, who was there, what time it happened, things of that nature, correct?
That is one of the purposes, or some of the purposes behind the report, absolutely, yes.
And the report in this case that documented these 3 searches involving you, Trooper Proctor, I think Trooper DeChico, even Canton PD officers, there was no memorialization in a report until nearly 18 months later. Is that right?
It's possible, yeah. We write reports at different times. Yeah.
I want to ask you about this February 4th visit to the crime scene. You indicated that sometime in the morning, 8:45, 9 a.m., something like that, you responded?
On the 4th, sir?
On the 4th.
I was driving to work, so I would have to say 8:45 or so. Yeah, I mean, I don't have the exact timestamp, but if you know, if you have something to refresh my memory, I could tell you if that's accurate.
I'm not going to hold you to the exact time. It was in the morning on the 4th.
It was.
All right. Did you know Chief of Police Ken Berkowitz before you responded on the 4th to 34 Fairview?
Yes, I knew who he was. I had met him previously, and he was present on the 29th when the vehicle was delivered to the Sallyport.
He was actually in the Sallyport, at least at some time, when the vehicle was delivered, correct?
He was there at some point. I had a conversation with him.
Okay. Tall guy, short guy?
Chief Berkowitz was a shorter guy.
Okay. Do you know who Brian Higgins is?
I do.
What's your relationship with Brian Higgins?
Uh,
Or what was it? I should be more pointed to this, Sergeant. What was your relationship back in 2022, January of 2022?
Brian Higgins was a federal agent, and I crossed paths with him on a couple of investigations, strictly professional relationship, a federal agent and a state trooper.
So not a personal relationship, more of a professional relationship.
Correct.
Did you know him to have a personal relationship with Chief Berkowitz?
I did not know.
Didn't Brian Higgins actually tell you and Michael Proctor in an interview that he had a personal relationship with Chief Berkowitz? He called him one of his better friends.
Sustained.
Sure. During the course of your investigation, did you learn, although you may not have personal knowledge of it, did you learn that Brian Higgins and Chief Berkowitz had some sort of a personal relationship?
If you show me a report stating that, I would like to take a look. If it's written in a report authored by me or that I approved, I will take it for to be fact.
As you sit here now, you don't have a memory of that conversation with Brian Higgins?
Do I have a memory of having a conversation with him
No,
and him sharing that information with me?
That's it.
I don't have a memory of him sharing that information, but if you have a report that was authored by me or Michael Proctor or any trooper in our office that says that, I will take it as gospel and testify to it.
Okay. Well, I don't want to take up the time to look for it. We'll put our hands on that. But in the meantime, let me ask you a few other questions. You were contacted and told to respond to 34 Fairview because Chief Berkowitz had been driving by and saw something while he was driving by, correct?
On which day, sir?
February 4th.
I'm sorry?
February 4th.
Yes. He indicated he was driving by and saw a piece of potential evidence.
And he was driving by in a car at speed, correct?
I would take that to be factual. I mean, if he's driving by, I would take it to be in the car
And
at speed.
did you question Chief Berkowitz about, by the way, about how old was Chief Berkowitz when you met him out at 34 Fairview in 2022?
How old?
How old? Estimate. Was he in his 50s, 60s, 70s?
I have no idea how old Chief Berkowitz was.
He indicated to you that he was driving by and saw a small piece of red taillight from his car. Is that right?
Objection.
Sustained.
He indicated to you that he was driving by and saw a red something from his car, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you question Chief Berkowitz after you learned this information about him driving by? Did you question Chief Berkowitz about how he could possibly see a piece of red plastic from his car?
No.
Did you question Chief Berkowitz about why he was driving by 34 Fairview in the first place?
No.
Did you question Chief Berkowitz about the fact that his department had been conflicted from the case, at least in part, because of a, as you put it, a perceived or possible perception of a conflict of interest?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that question, please?
Did you question Chief Berkowitz about whether or not he was aware that there was a conflict of interest between Canton PD and this investigation?
No, I didn't question. No.
Did you think that was important at the time to talk to him about that conflict of interest?
No.
Because just days earlier, Sergeant, the Canton Police Department had in fact recused itself from interviews because of a potential conflict of interest, right?
To prevent any perceived conflict of interest, they recused themselves from being involved in interviews. I wasn't pairing up with Chief Berkowitz to interview the taillight piece. I mean, I don't.
No, I didn't figure that you were going to interview the taillight piece. We all get the comment. I'm trying to get to a point. 3 or 4 days after, 5 days after, 6 days after, Kent PD recuses itself from these parts of the investigation because of a perceived conflict of interest. The brother of the homeowner, being a detective, the chief of that department drives by in a car and supposedly sees a piece of plastic. Right?
I'm sorry?
I object.
This is Steve.
Was your understanding, at least at the time, that the whole purpose of the recusal was so there would not be a perception of a conflict of interest? To avoid that?
I didn't give it much thought of the understanding why there was a recusal. I was told that they're not going to conduct interviews with us, and me being on the mission of conducting this investigation, assisting with this investigation, collecting evidence, I just knew that I needed more manpower. And the Canton police, being, having recused themselves, weren't going to be available to provide that manpower to conduct interviews.
And yet it was the chief of that very department that was standing out in front of 34 Fairview when you pulled up that morning.
With his detectives, they were at the location. They weren't standing outside. They were in their vehicles because it was raining really heavily.
Well,
Can we end at this?
we can, Your
All
Honor.
right.
Sure.
All right, so Sergeant will be bringing you back tomorrow.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Folks, that's it for today. Those same cautions, please do not discuss the case, don't do any independent research or investigation into the case. If you have to see, hear, or read anything else about the case, please disregard it and let us know. Be very careful with your social media use. And again, Sergeant.
All rise for the court, please. Jurors, close your notebooks. Follow me.
Can I see counsel about scheduling, please?
Man. I know that they found evidence like for days, but I was just thinking about it. Like, I know these people are not. It's time for a White Claw, not Bia. Not Bia. Should we ride the witch's broom? If I can find it again. Like, I know they were finding the stuff for days, but if February 10th, that's a long way for something like this. That's a long way from January 29th. If I was at home, I'm a lot of lighting, like I'm moving in slow motion. Doesn't matter. But if I was the homeowner and like the snow melted and there was pieces of taillight all over the place, I'd be calling the cops. I'd be like, come get all this crap off my yard and street. There are pieces of taillight everywhere. Right? But of course, they couldn't even be bothered to come out of the house when a man was supposedly hit. Dang it, Jill. I gotta figure out how to save this thing because I have to scroll forever every time I want to find it. Oh, there it is.
Both sides. But would everybody like to get up?
Come
and
on,
take a
StreamYard.
stretch? Attorney Jackson, do you need 5 minutes? Can we do 5 minutes? Okay, we're gonna stretch. I'm gonna have the jury get up.
StreamYard.
Right. Stretch up, stretch up, stretch up. Shake off the skittles, shake off the Reese's, shake off the skittles, shake off the Reese's. Ride the witch's broom, ride the witch's broom. Nice little stretch. All right, back to work, everybody. I'll see you outside there. Jurors, I know this has been a hard day. Would everybody like to get up and take a stretch? Attorney Jackson, do you need 5 minutes? Okay, we're gonna stretch. I'm gonna have the jury get up. I've been practicing for Pamela Pumpkin. Are you ready? Brennan to the left, Jackson to the right. Stretch up, stretch up, stretch up. Shake off the skittles, shake off the Reese's, shake off the skittles, shake off the Reese's. Ride the witch's broom, ride the witch's broom. Nice little stretch. All right, back to work, everybody. I'll see you outside there. Jurors, I know this is gonna hurt.
Her name is Maureen Hancock. During the first trial, she did a bunch of TikToks, and this is a Facebook reel, I think. She looks just like Beverly. She looks just like her. I feel sorry for her. But she does these little things imitating Judge Bev, and it's hilarious. But she looks just like her. You know, they say everybody has a twin, so I guess maybe she's Beverly's. So now we're like, okay, it's time to ride the witch's broom. Oh, it's just so funny. But she looks just like her. Yeah, you could drive by and see a small piece of plastic, but nobody saw a dead body on the lawn. That's the thing. If I was a juror and knew nothing else, that would be my biggest question. She dropped him off. People saw Karen in the car, but never saw him. And he never went in the house. Then where the heck was he? They never saw him in the car. People that saw her in the car didn't see him in the car. So what did she do? Did she just drive there without him? And pretend she drove him there? Then how did he end up dead on the lawn? Nobody saw him before he got out of the car or after. If she hit him and he was laying on the lawn, why did nobody see him when they came out of the house? And I still don't understand why Jen, who was texting him constantly, are you here? Are you coming here? Pull up behind my car. Hello. When they got there, why didn't she run out there and say, you're here, this is it, why don't you come inside? Are you coming inside? Instead of just going to the door and texting. Like, why? None of it makes sense. There's huge holes in this story. Huge holes. And the theories, because Karen was flirting with Brian Higgins over text. So one of the theories, because she got mad at John, this was left out of this trial. This came out of the last trial. She was mad at John because they went to Aruba on vacation over the New Year, and they were there to meet up with some friends of John. Karen saw him hugging a girl in the lobby of the hotel and she freaked out. So she was jealous and they got in a big fight. So, kind of in retaliation of that, she started flirting with Brian Higgins over text, but then she stopped. She ghosted him. So, one theory is that Brian Higgins fought with John that night over Karen. I don't think that's what happened. I really don't. And then you've got the drug dealing thing, and then is there another? Wasn't there another rumor? I don't know. There's several different stories as to why there was a fight that happened in the house, and then supposedly the dog got involved to either to protect its owner or just because it wasn't good with strangers or whatever, and the dog clawed up his arm or bit up his arm, whatever. And I guess there's a ground level door because of the way the house is built. There's a ground level door coming out of the basement, and people say that's why he was at the flagpole, because he was brought out of the basement door and went around to the flagpole. And that's why he was left there. And I guess they were just like, oh, well, we'll blame it on Karen because that's about the same spot where her car was last seen. But there's so many questions. We're never going to know what really happened. And what the lawyers on YouTube are saying is that if they do acquit her, there's no way they can go back and try anybody else for this crime because there's too many holes in the investigation because it was done so poorly. And also, there's no way anyone is going to convict anybody else because there's too much reasonable doubt, because people will say, oh, well, they tried somebody else 2 times before and they acquitted her. How can we be sure it wasn't her and convict this person for it? So basically, there's not going to be any justice for John O'Keefe either way. So it's really sad. So, but I think that it seems to me very obvious that these people are being deceptive, if not out and out lying about things on the stand. And I just hope that there's a jury smart enough. Yeah, they were. They were all drunk. Every last one of them were drunk. And like I said, that's the only thing she's guilty of is drunk driving. And that's not even anything she's charged with. Because she's charged with an accident under the influence of alcohol, right? Or something like that. But not just driving drunk. Not just plain old DUI. So, and it's sad. I think it's sad. Yeah, see, my question is, remember they said at one point in the night the Ford, was it Brian Higgins? No, Brian Higgins had a Jeep. Somebody's Ford, was it a Ford Focus? Somebody's Ford was in front of 34 Fairview and you couldn't see part of the yard. And it was kind of right there. So I don't know if they put that there to block the view while he was being put on the yard, or because he's in the house. How did they couldn't have used that car to transport his body to the yard because his body's already in the house. So why would that car be there unless it was to block the view from the house across the street? And I think there was a tree line between the house next door. I don't know. There's too many questions. There's just too many unanswered questions in this whole story. It's insane. It's insane. And when you hear conspiracy and like when Yannetti at the beginning of last trial, when Yannetti was like, Karen Reed was framed, I was like, what? Are you kidding me? He did not just say that. But the more the trial went on, the more I started to believe it because this is so ridiculous. The stories are so ridiculous. Yeah, like I was saying, my thing, what I was saying was, Jill, I was saying, I don't think they intended to kill him. I think maybe he went in there and somehow a fight started. And the dog maybe was like protecting the owner. Like it was someone that owned the house, one of the owners of the house got in a fight. You know, when you're drunk and you don't think, I don't drink. I very rarely drink and I don't get drunk. But if people do that, I've known people that do that and they get mean and then they start fighting with people that they wouldn't normally fight with, right? Some people are just mean drunks, whatever. So maybe they did. Maybe they said something, ticked the other one off, and they started fighting. And then the dog, not being good with strangers, also his owner is in a fight. He's going to protect his owner, right? Or she is going to protect her owner. So she jumped on John and bit up or scratched up his arm, right? And then in the basement is where they had like a gym set up. So he had weights and stuff down there. So he could have fallen and hit his head on the weight and accidentally died. And then instead of calling 911 like they should have, they decided to cover it up. That was my first thought. And so now I'm hearing all these other theories. And when it was first called in, did she say, I heard the 911 call, but I cannot remember for the life of me. She said 34 Fairview, didn't she? But it got written down as 32 for some reason. I mean, this thing from the very jump was screwed up. I wonder why it got written down as 32. Did the 911 operator know that 34 was a cop lived there? So she put it down as 30, or he or she, I don't remember. 2 years of this, I've got everything all jumbled up in my head. I can't keep it all straight anymore. But yeah, but no, he didn't freeze to death. They have now said the last trial they thought that there was some hypothermia involved, but this time they're saying he did not die of hypothermia. So he died in a warmer place and then was put out in the snow. And I don't know how they're going to bring that in, but that's going to be brought in at this trial. So that fact alone kind of negates the theory that he was hit by a car and died in the snow. So I'm ready for the defense case because I want them to call Proctor. I also, I'm ready for the ARCA guys to testify. But I think Brennan has a new, accident reconstructionist because Trooper Paul was the accident reconstructionist last time. He didn't even know. AJ asked him if he used physics to figure out the calculations and stuff for, I don't remember how I hate physics. I'll be honest, I hate physics. But he asked him something about physics, and Trooper Paul goes, "What do you mean physics?" And he goes, "Physics. Calculations you need to figure out for speed and movement, whatever." I don't know, because I hate physics. But he goes, "No, it just did. It just did." So that was their scene, their crash scene reconstructionist was, it just did. No calculations, it just did. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. It's, I mean, and I'm sorry, I know like cop shows on TV are not real, but even they don't do stuff like leaf blowers and solo cups, you know? But the defense wanted a retired FBI agent. His name was Easter. I don't remember his first name. His last name was Easter. And they made a motion to have him testify, and the judge denied it. She said that the jury should have enough knowledge to know whether or not the evidence was handled correctly, and the police work was done as it should have been, or something like that. And I'm like, yeah, right, because cop shows are always done exactly how the police do everything. Sure, they're going to know everything was done correctly. Not everybody knows that stuff. And some people only know it from watching TV. Exactly. That's crazy. That's nuts. Absolutely nuts. And so then Brennan gets up before she denied it, when they were still arguing it. Brennan gets up and says, well, if they do that, then I'll have to call an expert too, and then he'll have to cross-examine my expert about the things they did right in the investigation. And Jackson then got up and said, do it. I have 2 words for Mr. Brennan. Do it. And Judge said, now, Mr. Jackson, I have told you about personal remarks against each other. I want that to stop. And she, oh, it's not a personal remark. I'm serious. Do it. I will cross-examine his witness. Yes, I will. It was so funny. He's like, bring me your worst. I will take care of it. He's like not backing down for anything. Because yes, as all the people that get arrested, as we watch the body cam footage on Biggins' channel every night, they do. They'll tell them, I've seen Law and Order. I know my rights. They actually say that. People actually say that to police. I know my rights. I've seen Law and Order. Well, now they actually said, they'd not said that this trial, but the excuse last trial was that, well, Canton was recused, but they said they didn't know how to do a murder investigation in the snow. My first reaction to that was, what the heck? It's Massachusetts. Is nobody ever murdered in Massachusetts? How do you not know how to do a murder investigation in the snow? But then they said they usually hand off murder investigations to the Massachusetts State Police. But because he wasn't dead yet, and they didn't know at the time that it was a homicide, the Massachusetts State Police wouldn't take it right away. So apparently, when they did call the MSP about it, they wouldn't take it because he wasn't, what is that expression? See, I wasn't a trauma nurse, so by the time I got a car accident, they already had they were pinned together. All the brakes and stuff were pinned together and everything. I wasn't a trauma nurse. So what is that expression? They're not dead until they're warm and dead. Because if you get really, really cold, if you've been injured and you get really, really cold, you can still be alive, but seem to be dead. There are cases of people being thought to be dead because they've been so cold, but they weren't dead yet. And then they've been warmed back up and they're still alive. And then they get medical help and then they're perfectly fine. It seems impossible, but there are cases. So they didn't think he was dead because he was so cold. They decided to try to revive him. But I think he was actually dead. I don't think they ever got a heartbeat back or anything. But now, that's what they said in the first trial, that they had notified MSP, and they said, well, if he's not dead, it's not a homicide, so they weren't going to investigate it. So I don't know if that's true or not. But so it was kind of, the investigation was bungled from the beginning. And then for no one to go in the house, that still just blows my mind. Like, I told Travis, I'm like, so I can just kill anybody I want, throw them out on my yard, and they're not going to come look at my house? But then a bunch of the lawyers on YouTube said, well, they have to have a search warrant, and that's not enough for a search warrant. Like, how is that not enough for a search warrant? You got a dead guy on your lawn. How is that not enough for a search warrant? I'm sorry, but I think that's wrong. I personally think that's wrong. And of course, if you're innocent, you're going to say, sure, come in and look around my house. And then if you're not innocent, you're not going to let them. And then I think that's definitely reason to get a search warrant, because you're hiding something. And I don't think just because you're a cop that you should get a pass. I think certainly if you're a cop, you should say, oh yes, come in and look. Bleeding at the bar? No. He wasn't bleeding at the bar. His injuries were, his eyes were swollen. He had a laceration on his right eye and to the left side of his nose. And he had, I think the skull fracture was just a depressed skull fracture. I don't think it was like, like fractured bad. Like if it's like, I don't know what the term is. I should, because I'm a nurse. But like when it's fractured, like all the way through fractured, and it like damages your brain. I don't know what that's called. It's in my head somewhere. I've just forgotten it. But he had a depressed skull fracture, which means it's not like broken all the way through. And your scalp has a lot of capillaries in it. It's very, very vascular. So head wounds bleed like crazy. There was not enough blood where he was for that to be where he died. Right, Jill. Yeah. There was not enough blood. And also, they didn't know this the last trial, but this trial, they said that he didn't hit his head on a flat surface. It had to be on some kind of an edge, which could have been a dumbbell, right? I don't know. So he had, both eyes were swollen, and he had the depressed skull fracture. So like it didn't splinter into his brain is what I'm trying to say. So he had the depressed skull fracture and the The right eye had the laceration. The left side of his nose had a laceration. His right arm had scratches and bruising on it that looked like dog bites or scratches, and nothing else. Now, if you're hit by a car, I said, what was he, like, bent over? Did he have his head like, well, even if he had his head like this, how's he going to get 2 black eyes? And no broken legs? And no, if a car backs into you, how are you just going to have 2 black eyes? He's got nothing from here down. Nothing. Nothing. How does a car not break a bone? Uh-huh. Yeah. Because she was like, could I, like, she didn't think she ran over him. She was like, could I have hit him? Could I have clipped him? Like, hit him in the knee or hit him in the elbow, and he fell in the snow and couldn't get up, like, because he was drunk. That's what she thought. That's what she meant when she said, could I have hit him? That's what she says in all the documentaries. So that's what she meant by could I have hit him? That's what she explains in the documentaries. But she never, I think in one, she did say that the paramedics said she said I hit him, but I don't think she has a memory of saying I hit him. But she's been told now by so many people that she said I hit him that I think she's maybe even starting to believe she said that. I think she's being gaslit by some people. And that is not a stretch in my mind, because watching these people testify, they're trying to gaslight all of us, I think. Yeah. Yeah, that one too. Well, the ARCA guys, because of that glass, that cocktail glass that he brought from the last bar being broken and being near him, the ARCA guys, they made a cannon that shoots a glass because they thought maybe they're allowed to say, I think. Didn't Bev say they could bring everything in now, right? So they're allowed to say that their findings show that the injuries are not caused by an automobile. And they said that in the last trial. I don't know why the jury was... Well, yes, I do, because I think the jury was rigged last time. But anyway, they made a cannon that propelled a glass at... Was it the same kind of SUV, guys? Do you remember? Was it like the same exact type of taillight? But they made a cannon to shoot a cocktail glass at a taillight to see if it would shatter. And I don't think it did. Like I said, I was a mod in another person's chat back then, so I wasn't like 100% focused on all the details. But so that's what they were thinking with the broken glass, that they had a fight. He got out of the car and being mad, she drove off and he went to throw the glass at the taillight, and that's what broke the taillight and the glass. Well, see, that was Trooper Paul that said that. That was the guy that didn't know how to do physics. Some things are different, but I don't know that they're... I mean, I guess you could say that. I think they're just somehow they found out that facts are different than they knew last time. Because for some reason they found out that the injury to the back of his head couldn't have happened falling on a flat surface. Because Brennan, that meteorologist that Brennan brought in that testified the other day, was supposed to be there to testify that the ground was frozen, which I thought was ridiculous to bring in a meteorologist to say that. So he was supposed to say that the ground was frozen, and that's how he got the injury to the back of his head. But Jackson said in opening that now they know that he did not hit a flat surface. The injury was caused by something with an edge to it. And he also said that they have found out that he was, yeah, I guess they are changing their theory. And I don't know, he didn't say how the evidence was going to be brought in, but he said that the evidence was going to show. So he must have somebody that's going to testify. It's got to be, I think the medical examiner is going to testify for the defense this time. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. They talked to pretty much everybody that was at the waterfall that night last time. They went last time. It seemed like, because Yannetti started off in opening saying Karen Reed was framed. So he told the whole thing as if John went in that house and they killed him in the house and they left him in the yard and then they blamed Karen. That's the way the opening went last time. So Lally was a prosecutor last time, and he spent the whole prosecution basically defending the Alberts and McCabe's rather than trying his case. So they went over every single minute of the night before, what happened, who did what, who went where. It was so tedious and boring and ridiculous. Every single person that was at Brian Albert Jr.'s birthday party that night testified. Ryan Nagel testified in this one. He testified in that one, as well as his sister, and then all of Brian Albert Jr.'s friends, Brian Albert Jr., Colin Albert, who they think was involved in the fight somehow, Chris Albert, Julie Albert. Chris Albert is Brian Albert's brother, and he's a selectman of the town. Brian Albert testified. Nicole Albert, which is Brian's wife, Jim McCabe's sister. I'm trying to think. Brian Higgins testified. I still think the defense needs to call Brian Higgins, though. Oh, yeah, Proctor testified. Yeah, they need to get Proctor back on the stand. They need to get Proctor. I think the defense is going to call him. And I think they need to call Higgins because the text between Higgins and Karen, they look bad for Karen, but I think in a way they might help with the third party culprit. I don't know. What do you guys think? They might. But that's one of the theories. Because one of the theories is that, yeah, this was the other theory I couldn't remember a while ago. Okay, so the theories are that Chris Albert and Colin Albert were dealing drugs. And one of the other theories is that Brian Albert was gonna challenge John for Karen or whatever. So this theory kind of puts the two theories together, that they wanted John out of the picture because of the drug dealing thing. So they were going to get Higgins involved to help, but under the guise of well, you want Karen all to yourself, so help us get rid of John. So it kind of combines the two theories into one. Oh, you haven't seen the text? Oh, yeah, she was flirting with him big time. And then she actually kissed him at John's house in front of their security camera. And I think she did it because she wanted to make John jealous. Because she seems to me, she seems to me like a very insecure person. And she even says in one of the documentaries, because they asked her about it, I think this was in the HBO one, because the HBO one kind of focuses on the first trial. That's why I think there's going to be a season 2 that's going to be the second trial. Because it's like 5 episodes and it covers the first trial. So I think there's going to be a second season. But they asked her about it, and she said that she wasn't really serious. It kind of came on the heels of the Aruba trip and her being mad at John about that. And so, yeah. So I think, like, she just wanted to make him jealous. And like we were talking about the other day, there are couples that do that. Like, they think that's sexy, that their partner gets jealous over them talking to another person. I think it's disgusting, but some people like it. I don't know. So I think that's all she was trying to do. I don't think she really had a thing for him at all. But I think that they were going to use that to get Higgins to help them. And also, he's a federal agent. And then if he helped them, then they had that to hold over him. I don't know. The whole thing is just this weird, bizarre. And I feel so bad for her because she's got MS and Crohn's disease. And she's lost her job and her insurance. And she has these expensive treatments for these chronic illnesses. And now she's facing prison. And they were together for about 2 years. They had been together before, years ago, and it wasn't really serious. I don't think they dated for that long. But during the pandemic, I guess he was just like reaching out to old girlfriends or whatever on Facebook. And then that's how they got back together. And it seemed like they had been fighting that day, but that night everything was fine. But the things that they fought about mainly were the kids. He took care, I think he adopted his sister's kids. His sister and her husband had died. His sister had cancer, and then her husband died of a heart attack like 3 months later. So he moved into their house and adopted the kids. Karen didn't live there. She had her own house, but she was there a lot. And they practically lived together from what I understand. But she spoiled the kids. She did stuff for them. And I guess that morning she had taken them to get donuts before school. And he got mad at her about that. And also, there was something wrong with her hot water. And she called a plumber. And John was mad that she called a plumber and not let him and his dad go over there and fix it. And in one of the texts between them, he said, "Is your plumber friend hot?" So he was jealous of the plumber. So they had a very strange relationship. And, you know, some people might think they were fixing to break up, but other people might think that's just normal for a relationship. There's different types of relationships. Some people like to live like that, and some people don't, you know? So who am I to say that was a good relationship or not? I know her MS might stress. Yeah, like she could be suffering. We have no idea. I mean, I don't have MS. I have fibro, but every little bit of stress, and just the stress of this trial. You guys have seen what it's done to me. And I'm not even the one on trial. I thought I was dying the other night. Well, the text made it, well, before he said, "Is your plumber friend hot?" He made it seem like we can fix it and he's going to charge you a lot of money. And it seemed like sweet, a sweet gesture. And then he went, is your plumber friend hot? And I was like, oh yeah, it has nothing to do with money. It's all, he's jealous. That's what it is. Okay, guys. I will see you tomorrow. Thank you so much, GBMFO, for coming by. I've enjoyed the conversation. Please come by again. It's been fun. And thank you for the memberships. I will see you guys again in the morning for more Phil Spector. If you want to come by again. We are about to, what's that guy's name? I forgot his name. Security or bodyguard or something for Joan Rivers, and Phil Spector's making a butthead of himself at her Christmas parties, and he's testifying, and he's fixing to start Cross. And then, of course, we will be back for the rest of Cross here for Karen Reed at 9:00. And from what Turtle Boy says, Commonwealth is almost done. So, but I know they have some experts coming up. I hope they're not as boring as Whiffen and Hyde. Because the cell phone stuff goes right over my head. It just does. Like Tuber Paul says, it just does. Okay, guys, have a good evening, and I will see you tomorrow. And remember, be kind to people, love your family, and Jesus loves you. And so do I. Bye.